Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Android Training Development Session 6. So before we start with today's session, let's see what are the topics that we covered in the previous session. Like we saw some of the concepts from the fourth session as well as from the fifth session. So I just discussed few things which we saw over there. Probably I'll just share my mobile screen so that I can explain it easily for you all. So in the fourth session, in the unit 11, we saw 5 controls. So the first one was your check text view control, which we saw. So in this check text view, you can see that right side you are able to see that the right side you are able to see this checkbox is right. Probably the background color and the foreground color of the checkbox is almost the same, so that you people are not able to see this one. So that we can change the color of this checkbox so that it is visible on the background color. Probably you just need to change the style of it or give some foreground or background color for the checkbox, or else change the background color of the screen to black color so that the white color checkbox is visible. Either one of the things has to be changed so that the color will be visible over there. So this is a checkbox. So as you can see that you will be able to select multiple items, and this check text view control is suitable to be used during the list view control. So whenever you want to display the checkboxes inside a list view, then you should be using this check text view inside the list view control. And it's not compulsory that this control should be used only within the list view. It can be used even without using the list view, but what the Android framework suggests is it is always good that you use this control inside the list view control so that it gives you more better performance rather than using a separate checkbox and text view for handling the checkbox concept. So whenever there is a need, I'll repeat once more, whenever there is a need for you to display the checkbox along with the text view, don't do it separately by placing a checkbox and a text view control. Rather, just use a simple check text view control for giving the same kind of output, but in a more better way, right? So this was the check text view control, and the next one was autocomplete text view, where you'll be able to select multiple options over here. Oh, probably I just cancelled this. Okay, where you'll be able to select multiple options over here. In autocomplete text view, we had two things. One was the autocomplete text view, and the other one was the multi autocomplete text view, which you can see in the bottom right. So in autocomplete text view, you will be able to select only one option from the drop-down list. So as soon as you start typing something, the options will be visible over there. Yes, as soon as I start typing, the options will be visible. So this is autocomplete text view. So here you'll be able to select only one option. After that, if you start typing, it won't be visible. I mean, here, whatever is there, you should be able to select that one. Next is you have multi autocomplete text view. So in this multi autocomplete text view, it is almost the same as the autocomplete text view, except that here we'll be able to select multiple options. See, once I select the option, the comma will be placed. So either you can place the comma or hyphen or any other character which should be specified in the code. What is the tokenizer? So after India, I'll be able to select one more option. See, I'll be able to select multiple options from the list. So this is nothing but multi autocomplete text view control. The next one is your number picker control. It is a very simple one. It's just that it's a kind of a drop down, but not exactly a drop down or a spinner. Rather than you'll be able to select the numbers from the list. You get an animation kind of effect and everything over here. The next one is your view switcher control, where Here you can change the views. So for this view switcher, you need to manually write some code so that whenever the user scrolls from left to right or from right to left, you need to calculate the gestures of it by accessing the x and y coordinates, right? So you need to calculate those things, whether the user swipes from left to right or from right to left, and accordingly change the views. So that is one of the things that you need to do it over here in the view switcher. Here, if I swipe from right to left or from left to right, the view changes because in the code I am doing the calculation and then changing the views. So we have some functions like move next, move previous, next previous, and all those functions which can help you to change the views. The next one is your view pager. This view pager, I just gave you all this example, and it's a control available in the Android framework, which most of them, most of the times we keep using this view pager control rather than using the view switcher control, because this gives you more comfortability in handling the waves, in handling the controls. See here, if I want to switch the views, you don't need to write any code over here, such that you need to calculate the gestures, whether the user swipes from left to right or from right to left. You don't need to calculate anything over here. You just swipe the views, automatically the view pager will calculate and switch the views accordingly. See, you also have this animation kind of thing. So easily you can change the views over here. So here there is no need to write any code. It's just that you need to give the data for the view pager control so that it keeps switching the views. So this was a view pager. Next one is your shared preferences concept, which we saw. Shared preferences is basically used for storing the data. I think this data was stored in the last session. So the same data is being displayed over here. Right. So whenever you want to store small amount of information on the device, then you can make use of this share preferences, which will help you to store small amount of data in the form of a key value pair. Remember this one? It should be in a key value pair. Something like a username, date of birth, age, gender, and all those things can be saved inside the local storage using the share preferences concept. Again, I just give a brief. There are there were different kinds. There are three and four kinds of storage mediums available. One is the SQLite. One is the share preferences. Second one is the file storage. Third one is the SQLite. Fourth one is the content providers. So one among that one is the share preferences, where it will provide you the necessary library to store the data in the form of a key value pair. So until the app is there inside the device, this data will be retained. Once the app is uninstalled, all the data which is related to this particular app will also be removed from the device. Remember this one. It is not permanent. As long as you have the app on your device, this data will be persisted. Once you remove or uninstall the app, even the data will be removed from the device. Remember this one. So this was the concept which we saw in the fourth session. And coming back for the fifth session, we saw some of the concepts like the same SQLite database and other things. So this was the fifth session. So first we saw the internal storage. Basically the files concept, which is nothing but the internal storage, where you will be storing the data locally on the device. You need to convert this whatever information you are typing over here into some byte format and then save it into the device. You need to create a file in the device and store the contents inside it. Next time again you pull back the data and display it on the device. Basically the internal storage, your phone memory, which cannot be accessed by the users. Next is the external storage. You can store it is almost the same as the internal storage, except that it will be storing on the external devices. External storage in the sense your memory card, right? So it will be storing on the memory card. So anything you store on the memory card will be visible to the user. So make sure that whatever information you are saving, decide whether the information should be publicly available or not. If you want to make sure that the data is private and no one shouldn't see the data, I mean no one shouldn't see the data in the sense even the user account, even the user who is using the app also shouldn't be able to see the data. So in that kind of scenario, you need to decide whether to store the data on the internal storage or external storage. So depending upon the scenario, you need to decide whether to store the data on the internal or external storage. So I have given one more sample over here, read write JSON internal storage. So this sample will demonstrate, it's just an example which I have given in the app. Probably you people might have downloaded this sample and gone through the code, right? So this is just a sample which is being given for you all to, in a more, this example is in a more bit advanced way. Rather than storing the textual information, here I am storing the JSON data so that you'll just be comfortable like how to convert JSON into string and string into JSON. And also I've demonstrated all the options over here like add, update, delete, save, clear and load concepts. So probably you can just see this sample, you just run the sample once and try to understand the code over there. Next one was a database without helper class. So this database concept is, both are almost the same except that the way you interact with the library is quite different. The way you write the code for both the samples is quite different. Database without helper class is the first one. The database without helper class is you write all the SQL related queries like insert, delete, update, fetching, creating. You do all these operations on the same activity. Remember this one, database without helper class is nothing but you do all the DB operations like create, delete, update, delete, truncate, all the operations in the same activity. Database with helper class is you write all those code inside a separate file, inside a separate Java file, and then access the Java file in any of the activities or in any of the files inside your project. So this is one of the advantage if you are using the helper classes, because most of the time you will be reusing the code rather than writing all the code in a single activity. And if you want to access the same table, then you need to copy paste the code from one activity to the other one. It will increase the number of lines of code and also it will be difficult to understand the code. So that's the reason whenever you're using the DB concept, database concept in Android, try to use this helper class concept. Write all the DB operations in a separate file and access that function from the project. So it's more of a code reusability which you'll be doing over there if you're using the database with helper class concept. We'll go with the next concept, that was Unit 15, Android network connectivity concept. So this is not a controls, it is just a concept which is used for connecting to the network from your Android applications. It is most common in Android that you need to pull the data from the server, right? You need to add the data, you need to create some data, you need to fetch the data, you need to delete, update, you do different kinds of transactions, I mean you do different kinds of operations, right? So everything requires the network connection, and also you need the server. So if you want to communicate with the server, you need some specific set of library that will help you make connection for the server, so that you can do any kind of operations on there. So this Android network connectivity plays a vital role in the Android development. So I mean there might be no applications where the app doesn't use the network concept at all, unless it might be a games or a small kind of applications. You see any kind of applications, everything uses the network connectivity, so that the apps can communicate with the server for exchanging of the information or data. Right. So we'll be seeing some of the concepts over here. So Android allows your application to connect to the internet or any other local network and perform network operations. In this unit, you will learn how to work with the Android network connectivity. At the end of this unit, you will be able to identify how to work with the Android network connectivity, identify how to run tasks in background using async tasks, identify how to make network calls using HTTP URL connection. So we'll see all these concepts in today's session. In today's session. And also we'll see other concepts like Google Maps and also how to publish the app to the Google Play Store. Android network connectivity, checking for network connection. So before you make any network calls to the server, first thing you need to make sure that you do is you need to check for the internet connection, whether internet is there or not. So this is the first step that you need to make sure that you check whether the internet connection is there or not. Only if it is there, then you need to start making the network calls. If not, you just need to do it in an alternate way. Like that, you can just display a message for the user saying that there is no network connection. You please try again once more. Probably the user might have switched off the Wi-Fi, or he might be out of coverage, and different reasons. So probably if you can know the reason, you can display the reason, so that the user will get more idea about it. So that's what first thing you need to make sure that you need to check for the network connection. Android lets your application connect to the internet or any other local network and allows you to perform network operations. Android provides connectivity manager class. Remember this one. Android provides connectivity manager class to check whether a device is connected to a network or internet. Connectivity manager class object is instantiated by calling the get system service method. Connectivity manager, you need to declare an object for the connectivity manager. So this is what is doing over there. Connectivity manager check equals to get system service contact.connectivity service. So if you call that one, it will give you the permission for accessing the internet. It will give you the permission to access the network, internet. So store the object inside the check object. Next is, once the object is instantiated, you can use the get all network info method to get the information of all the networks. With this information, the state of a network can be checked. So once you create an object for the connectivity manager, by using that object, you need to call the get all network info method, which will return all the networks which is available on the device. Like your device might be connected to a GPRS connection for your network provider, right? And also your device might be connected to different kinds of Wi-Fi devices also, right? Wi-Fi signals. So in that kind of scenario, this will be very much helpful. So you retrieve all the signals which are present, and in that signal, at least one has to be connected, right? So if one is connected, it means that there is a network connection. So in that kind of scenario, you can make use of this. So once you get the network info, once you get the network info array, you just need to go inside a for loop and keep checking whether any one of the network connection is enabled. Enabled in the sense, enabled and internet connection is available. So you need to check inside a for loop for the network info, whether any one of the network is available or not. Probably I'll just show you these things in the samples so that you get a more clear picture about that one. But for timing, you can understand these things as of now. Okay, before going with this async task, I'll show you this network connection checking. So I just have this sample. So anyhow, I'll be giving this sample for you all so that if you want to make use of this compare, you can just copy paste the code which is there inside this project. So if you want to check whether the network is there or not and then make network calls, you can make use of this code which I have provided in the sample. Probably I'll just share this sample at the end of the session. Okay, I'll just click on this. So now you can see that I've connected, right now I've connected to the Wi-Fi network. Yes, right now I've connected to my Wi-Fi network. So now what I'll do is I'll click on this button. So when I click on this button, it should say me whether I'm connected to the network or not. I mean whether internet connection is there or not. Yes, internet is available. Basically the mobile is connected to some particular network. It is possible that you might be connected to a Wi-Fi network or any other network, but still the internet might not be available. So in that kind of scenario, you need to look for an alternate way. There are two things. First, you need to be connected to a network, and inside that network, the internet should be available. Right. So right now, even both are present. Here, if I again click on this button, it will give the message internet available. So what I'll do now is I'll turn off the Wi-Fi, right? I'll turn off the Wi-Fi. Now if I click on the button, what should be the message? Internet not available, because none of the networks are being connected. Everything is being disconnected, right? So that's the reason it is giving the message as internet not available. So again, if I go back and connect to the Wi-Fi, now I have connected to the Wi-Fi, right? So now if I click, I should get the message internet available because I am connected now. So I'll just show you the code. Check Wi-Fi and mobile data. So this is the class which I have written separately, right? Here there is an activity which I have created, network connection. Inside this, okay, I'll show you the XML file which is related to this activity. See, this is the code which I have written. I've just put a single button in the center of the page. That's it. Nothing else. Right? So after this, so I'll be accessing this button over here. So for this button, I have generated a click event. Here I am getting the reference of the button and storing it inside this btn check variable. Next I'm registering the listener for the button control. So button check dot set on click listener. So whenever you click on the button, this particular function is called, which has been overridden by the listener. I think these things are already explained in the first and second unit, so I don't think so it might be necessary over here. It's just that whenever you're registering the listener for the button, so whenever the user clicks on the button, this particular function will be called on click. So inside the on click, you are calling the check Wi-Fi and mobile data dot is connected, passing your application reference, get application contact. So if this is connected function returns true value, then it means internet is available, else not available, right? So I'll show you what is there inside this check Wi-Fi and mobile data and is connected. Since this is a class, since it is a class and is connected is a static public function. So that's the reason without declaring an object for the class, you are accessing the function. I just give you a brief of that one. How can you access the function? Function can be accessed in two ways. You declare an object for the class and then access the function using the dot operator. Second way is you declare the function as public static so that you should be able to access the function anywhere inside the project using the class name. Remember this one. If you are accessing any static variables or static functions, you need to access those things using the class name. I mean the class which is as those static concepts. So I'll show you this is connected. So this is the class which I have written. So this is a public class. Public class. This is just a, see, this file is nothing but a normal Java class. Don't get confused. This file is just a normal Java class which I have created. Inside the Java file, I'm declaring a static function saying that is connected. So is connected is taking the current application context parameter. And over here you need to say connectivity manager, connectivity manager, typecasting, context.get system service. So this will give you the permissions for accessing the network. Next, you need to check whether the connectivity is null or not. Next, you need to make sure that network info, connectivity.get network info. Right? Connectivity.get network get all network info. This will return you the all the networks available. Again, check for if info is not equals to null. If it is not equals to null, instead of for loop, iterate one by one. Right? Here you can see that I have put the log message so that in the Android monitor, here you'll be able to see all the messages which have been logged. Suppose if you want to debug or if you want to see some information on the console, then you can use the log concept. Whatever log you do, everything will be displayed over here. So log.b, or you can also use log.e for error. If you want to display errors in red color, then you can use log.e. If you want to just display the information, then you can use the log.b, B for verbose. See, here you can see it's saying display only verbose messages or display debug. You can also use debug messages like this, log.d. So you can use any one of the options present over here. So I'm getting one by one. Here I'm checking if info of i.getState equals to network info.state.connected. If at least one of the network is being connected, then I'm immediately returning the true value, which says that the network is available. If none of the things get passed inside the if condition, then finally I'm returning the false value, which indicates that there were no more network connections available and it was not connected. So this was about your check Wi-Fi and mobile data concept. The next one is your async task. See, till now we just check whether network is available or not, right? Next step is you need to call the server and do some operations on it, like creating, reading, updating, fetching, truncating, all those things. So async task is an abstract class provided by Android which helps us to use the UI thread properly. Remember this one. Async task is an abstract class which is provided by the Android which helps us to use the UI thread properly. Async task class allows us to perform the long background operations and shows the result on the UI thread without having to manipulate the threads. I repeat once more. Async task class allows us to perform the long background operations and shows its result on the UI thread without having to manipulate the threads. I think you might have heard about the thread concept and runnable interface, right, in your core Java, where you'll be able to run the multiple threads, right? So same thing even over here, but there is no much complex thing over there where you need to create a thread class, where you need to implement the runnable interface, where you need to start the thread, nothing like that. You just need to use the async class, where if you just declare an object for the async task, automatically it will start the operation on it. So async task has different kinds of methods which we'll be seeing later, but async task, this will run on a separate thread. Once it finishes with its task, it will inform the main thread saying that the work is being finished, and it will hand over the data which is being received from the child thread. It's not a child thread, actually it's a separate thread which will be running parallelly to the main thread, where inside your main thread your app keeps running over there. If you run this async task on the main thread, I mean it's not possible, but if you run the async task on the main thread, the entire screen will be blocked so that the user won't be able to do any kind of operations. That is not proper, right? User should be able to do some operations as soon as, I mean, include, you should be able to do some operations simultaneously with the background task, with some network operations. So both should happen simultaneously until there is a serious thing that you need to specifically block. For example, in banking apps, when the user is doing some transaction, the user has to wait on the screen, right, such that everything is being okay over there, such that the data is being transferred for the other people or other person, and he gets the confirmation. So in that kind of scenario, you can block the user from using the screen. But anyway, it just completely depends upon the scenario, like how it needs to be implemented. The next one is your async task should ideally be used for short operations, a few seconds at the most. Remember this one. When an asynchronous task is executed, that the task goes to 4 steps. One is the on pre-execute invoked on the UI thread before the start is executed. Before the asynchronous task starts its execution, it has 4 methods. The 4 methods will be called accordingly. So the first thread that will be called is the on pre-execute thread. So on pre-execute is the function that will be called before an asynchronous task is executed. Next one is do in background. So once the on pre-execute finishes its work, it will hand over the controls for the do in background, where this is the function that will be running on a separate thread. Remember this one. So whatever network operations you want to do, everything needs to be done inside this do in background function. Do in background is invoked on the background thread immediately after the pre-execute finishes executing. That's what I was explaining. Once after the on pre-execute function is finished its work, this function will be invoked. Which function? Do in background function. The next one is on progress update. Invoked on the UI thread after a call to publish progress. So sometimes there might be a scenario where if something is downloading and you want to show the percentage of the completion. So in that kind of scenario, these functions can be useful. And the final one is your on post execute, which is invoked in the UI thread after the background completion finishes. I mean after the background completion finishes. So after everything is done, in the final stage on post execute is called, where the data will be passed by the do in background function. If something needs to be passed into the on post execute, then it needs to be passed inside the do in background function. There is one more thing which I need to discuss with you all. It is nothing but the HTTP URL connection. So both the async task and HTTP URL connection, I'll show both these samples in the single example once I explain this concept. So Android provides HTTP URL connection and URL class to handle network operations. So URL connection for HTTP is used to send and receive data over the web. So this class is used for sending and receiving the data over the network or the web. Data may be of any type and length. That is, you can send and receive streaming data whose length and type is not known in advance. Remember this one. So you need to instantiate an object of URL class by providing the link. So URL equals to new URL of link. Link needs to be replaced within the double quotes. I mean, you need to provide the HTTP link. I mean, you need to provide the link within the double quotes over there. So basically over here you are making a HTTP URL. Basically here you are making a network call, right? So inside the async